I am so excited. I have the Christmas in July mystery box that I'm working with this time, and there's a whole mess of different glitters and stuff, and this fabric. Um, there were two different fabrics for these mystery boxes. This one is trucks and cars and trailers, and I'm a camper, so I figured that this would be a good fabric for me. And the glitters that came with the package, we have these lovely red and green trees, and we have candy sprinkles, which are going to be perfect on those hot chocolate cups when you start making them with the drips. This fabric comes from Fabric Tumblers Canada, so check them out. She has a website as well as a Facebook page, and she's got all kinds of really cool fabrics. And so the other glitters that came with that is this beautiful green and red and white dot, which I'm going to use on my cup. In the package comes a 20-ounce skinny with a screw top lid, much like this one, but I traded her for one of her flawed handled cups. So this was a sublimation cup that had a flaw on it, so I sanded all of that off, and I gotta tell you, that's some work. It's not like sanding your regular stainless steel cups to get that coating off, but it's totally doable. So I use a mouse to do mine, and I've primed it with white paint because I'm going to be putting fabric on this. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and my paint is still apparently a little damp, so that's not good. So some of the other glitters that we've got in here, we've got one called Evergreen, which is this pretty green, and Casper, which is an extra micro, it's a microfine, so it's kind of like the eco glitters that I talk about. It's very super fine, so I can't wait to try that so I can show you what that's like. It's got a really pretty colored shift to it, so I'm going to use that. And this is Santa's hat. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4 glitters, in 2 packages of shapes, plus the fabric, plus a 20-ounce cup, all in this package. So I have a specific plan in mind for this cup. I'm going to not mess, because this one has a handle on it. Stick my hand in there so I don't take any more paint off of it. So this one has a handle on it. I don't want to be messing around with fabric around this handle, so I've measured it so it's going to be a 1/2 inch from the handle on both sides, and a strip around with a 1/2 inch on the top and the bottom. That will be all done in this glitter. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to make the handle the actual tree shapes, because that would go really nicely with this, but it might be a bit of a pain to do, so I might just do alcohol ink to make it colored. I'm not sure, I'm still thinking about that. So but I am going to pre-cut my fabric. Quite often when you see Jamie do tutorials and whatever, she cuts her fabric as she's going with her cups, and gets rid of the excess. But because I'm not doing a full wrap, I'm just doing and I have to account for that handle. I don't want to be messing around with even lines and whatnot when I have such a straight line to compare to with where the handle is. That I'm going to cut my fabric in advance, and I'm going to cut it. I've measured, this cup is from the edge of the handle to the edge of the handle 10 inches around, and so I'm going to, I want to make a 1/2 inch on either side, so I'm going to make it 9 inches wide. And I have this handy dandy ruler system from my quilting days. So I'm going to make it 9 inches wide so it goes around here, but you can measure whatever cups that you're dealing with. And it's 6.5 inches, 6.5 inches tall. Yeah, 6.5 inches tall. So I'm going to make my fabric actually 6.5 inches, so that I don't cut myself short, and it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I might even cut it 7 inches just to give me some wiggle room on either end, and because this fabric's not a stretch fabric, so I might need to be a little bit more precise, but then I'll use the cutter tool to do a 1/2 inch on either side. And that little bobble I just did with my finger is not going to make a great big deal of difference to anything, because it's going to be covered up with glitter, so I don't care. But I am going to go wash my hands before I cut this, so I will be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this fabric, and I'm lining up from 1 to 9. That's how many inches I'm going to do it to go around the cup. You can see you've got enough to do more than that, and I'm going to just make sure, I'm going to kind of touch it here and make sure that that's going to be enough for what I want to do. And it should be, because I'll just, whatever I work out with, and it should work out just perfectly, but I'll just balance it. If it's a little short, I'll just balance it with the glitter and it'll work out just fine. So you want to line up, if you've never used one of these before, you want to line these lines up with your edges to make sure everything is completely straight. I've already squared off this edge over here, so if I put this line all the way up on 9, it's good. Now I'm going from this corner to this corner is 7 inches, so I'm going to come all the way up here to the 7 inches and the 9 inches, and just make sure I've got a nice tidy little square in there. And then I'm going to use my rotary cutter to cut this piece of fabric out. So you can see you could make a smaller camping mug with this piece, and you could do a wrap. I don't know if you could get a whole, maybe you could get it around a whole skinny cup, but you can, out of this one piece of fabric, you can get multiple cups. So that's a definite bonus. So I'm going to take my rotary cutter here, and I don't usually do it from this angle, so I don't, and I just press firmly down on the ruler to make sure it's not going to slip, because if it slips I don't have even lines. I clearly need a sharper blade for this. I'm just not pressing hard enough is the thing. It's been a long time since I've done fabric sewing stuff. Okay, so now I have all of this leftover fabric that I can do another cup. I could do it crosswise. I could get it all the way around a skinny, I betcha. Yeah, I could do a whole skinny cup out of this as well as the cup I'm doing. So one little piece of fabric, it might sound like it's expensive or you know, for one cup, but the thing is you get multiple cups out of it, and that is a definite bonus. So again, the fabrics in this package come from Fabric Tumblers Canada. Jamie is amazing, so go and check out her Facebook group and watch some of her tutorials on how she does her amazing things. So safety first, get rid of that blade. And then I can get rid of these things, and once my paint is completely dry, because I don't want to be putting this on anything with damp paint, I will be able to start applying my fabric to this cup. But is this not going to be so cute for Christmas morning? This is going to be so cute. So we'll get started as soon as my paint is saying it's ready to go. Okay, so my paint is all dry and it's not looking the best, but it is going to all get covered up, so that's okay. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I have an even space between my edges here is, I said I wanted it 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. I'm going to line my ruler up to the edge of my handle here and measure 1/2 inch. This one doesn't start right at the beginning, so it makes it a little harder. So I'm going to just butt my measuring tape against the handle here, and I'm going to 1, 2, 3, the fourth one, 1, 2, 3, there's my 1/2 inch there. You just need to make a small line, because you just want to make sure your fabric touches those two areas so that you're as straight as you can be. And these, I'll measure out the edges on these with my fabric cutter when I get to that part. Okay, we'll set that aside. And now I have this cut piece of fabric, not this piece of fabric. I have this piece of fabric that I've cut, and I want to just start on this side, and we'll line it up to this line like that. We'll just line it up so that the edge of it is touching both of my pencil marks on this side, and when I get to this side, should be touching my pencil marks on this side. So it'll be nice and even and ready to go. So I'm going to start with, this is Mod Podge that I have in this container, and this actually, I bought a set of 3 of these, and 2 of them I used for epoxy, and the epoxy started breaking down the silicone and created this constant leak, and it was a problem, but it works really well with my Mod Podge. Every now and then I have to pull dried glue out of the tunnel here, but otherwise it works just fine. So I'm just going to put a line of glue down and brush it out. So I can get my edge started, and I'm going to go the whole length, even though I'm going to be cutting away the fabric. I'm just going to do the whole length of the cup. And right along my edge here, and then I'm going to get my fabric lined up so it's overlapping on both the top and the bottom. And this is not a stretchy fabric, so I don't know if that's going to cause me any issues. I don't think it will. And just smooth it down so it's stuck down there, because I don't want it shifting around as I go. And then I'm just going to fold it back. Another line of glue. Got a little overzealous there. I'm making sure I get right underneath this fabric, because you want every inch of this stuck down. And then I'm just going to smooth it with my hand. I love this fabric, it's so cute. A little bit less of line of the glue. And smooth it. The beautiful thing about straight cups like this is that you don't have to fight with tapers. And that is how we're looking. So this whole area, this I'm for sure going to alcohol ink. Not sure if I'm going to put the tree shapes on here or not. But I'm going to put alcohol ink on there to, and this part to be like a base coat, because I'm using chunky glitter, and chunky glitter can leave blank spaces. Now the chunky glitter I'm using also has white in it, so that would take care of that. But if I use the trees, it doesn't. So I'm going to just put alcohol ink everywhere, and show you how I do that. Sometimes when I do gold, I put a brass or a gold alcohol ink in between the spaces that show up with a gold chunky when I'm doing a beach cup. And that works out just nicely. So I'm going to coat this now with another layer of glue. Take that thread off of there because I don't want that. And I'm going to do that 2 times. I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to do another time, and then I will come back and cut off the excess fabric, and we will go from there. So you don't need to watch me do this for the whole thing, but this is basically the gist of it. I'm just putting glue on and covering the whole cup so it's stuck right down. This is used to be decoupage with paper. You did this, but that's what I'm going to do for this. And so I'm going to do 2 coats, and then I'll come back and we'll cut the edges off the top and bottom, and we'll keep on going. Okay, I have 2 coats of Mod Podge now over top of this fabric, and I'm going to use my Wicked Shimmer cup edging tool that I think Jamie sells them. I know I got mine as a buy-in, so I don't know if she permanently has them or if it's just on a buy-in basis that she has them. But I'm going to now take off the extra and leave a rim around. I know I said I was going to do 1/2 inch, but I've got 4 washers on each side on this, and so it's, I think, works out to more of 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to press my cup against here and just apply quite a bit of pressure. And press the cup up against the tool and let the tool do the work of cutting, and then it just peels off where it's cut through. So where it's not peeling off, I'll just cut a little bit extra. Okay, so it's not as big as a rim as I was initially planning on, but this is where I decided to do it. So, because this part here is really quite broad, so I'm just going to do a narrower 1/4 inch on the top and the bottom. And so to do the top part, I'm now just going to flip it over and do the same process again. This cup edging tool works great on tape too, so if you're having trouble putting straight tape lines on, if you want to tape your tops and bottoms, you can work it on that as well with vinyl. If you're doing a full vinyl wrap, it'll work on that as well. So I've got this now. Didn't quite get to the edge there. And just peel it off. You'll find the places that you didn't get enough pressure. So there we have nice clean edges so that it's going to not interfere with the seal. And I'm going to put 3 more layers of Mod Podge on here. You don't need to be watching me do multiple layers of Mod Podge. So once I am finished sealing the fabric completely with layers of Mod Podge, I will come back and we will talk about glitter and how we're going to deal with the handle and whatnot. But so far, super cute Christmas mug. I actually really like these. I like big cups, so you could easily get 2 cups of coffee in here, no trouble. So that is the cup edging tool step of this. And so once I get my fabric, I will come back. Okay, I have now 5 coats of Mod Podge on my fabric. It's shiny, so it should be good to go. So I figured out what I'm going to do with my glitter and how I'm going to apply it. I'm going to put the dots with the 3 Christmas colors around the top and bottom. I'm going to put the trees all around here, And I'm going to make the inside of my handle the green glitter and the top of my handle the red. So I'm using just about everything that came in the mystery box for this project. I'm going to adhere my glitter with acrylic paint. So that's it works really well to do it that way instead of doing glue, and it fixes any little nicks and stuff that happened with the taking off of my edges and stuff. So I think I'm going to start with the trees, but I'm going to tape off my edge here and this edge just to make sure I don't get anything on the fabric and I don't interfere with what's supposed to be a straight line for my glitter that's going to go around the top. So I'm just going to tape that off, and I'm going to tape off the bottom part. And that just ensures that I'm going to have a nice, crisp, clean line when it comes time to do that part. It would help if I'm not trying to do this on the rounded surface of the cup. Okay, one more piece. When I'm using tape, I use this purple delicate surface painter's tape. I find that that works the best for me, and it's it's sticky enough that it actually does its job, but not so sticky it's going to peel up fresh paint, because it's not like I'm letting things cure for days and days. Okay, so my section is taped off, so this is going to be, this part will be easy. It's my handle that's going to be a little bit more interesting, but I'm going to I'm going to use this bigger brush. Now the trees are red and green, but they have their shapes, so they don't cover nearly as consistently as other types of glitter. So I'm just going to wet my brush a little bit because I'm working with acrylic paint. And I'm going to do red for my base, and this is just Craft Smart red. It's just the cheap paint. You don't need the expensive paint for this kind of a job. And my colors are not exactly, my paint colors are not exactly with the glitter colors that I have, but the glitter covers it all up. So I'm just going to I think I might do 2 coats of this just because it's the cheap paint. It's not covering perfectly right now. And I think, want a little bit more of an opaque base. Thankfully, acrylic paint dries really pretty quickly. So I'm just going to smooth this out. And I'll be right back to do another coat. Okay, I am going to do my second coat, and I'm going to do this in sections because acrylic paint dries pretty quickly, and I want to make sure that I can properly adhere my shapes to this. So I'm just going to go beside the handle and over the handle, and I'm going to get a nice generous coat of paint on here. If it takes a bit to dry, that's okay. And then I'm going to grab my trees. And get them on here. And I'm just going to kind of press them in. I don't work with shapes much, and just kind of shake them off. Okay, they don't want to stick, so I'm going to go with plan B here. I guess I need a better kind of adhesion for shapes than I do for glitter, so this is not a conducive method for this. I'm just making a mess of myself is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to scrape off the trees that did stick. And set these aside. And so what I'm going to do instead is just do the red glitter. I might want a sheet of parchment for this job. The rolled up sheets of parchment would be better, but they're not because they're rolled. All right, let us do this. And this is again Robin's Pressing Images Santa's Hat is the color. And you can see it sticks just nicely to the wet paint. All right, so on the inside edge of the handle, I want it to be green because I just want to incorporate that. So I'm going to do that before I do the outside edge. So I'm going to put away my red glitter here. Get out my green paint, and again it doesn't match exactly, but the green glitter is gonna cover it over. So this is Folk Art Grass Green, which is the only green I have that's similar in color. I do not work with green a whole lot. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off any red glitter I've got in there, and I'm just going to apply my green paint to the inside of my handle. Maybe I'll do the whole handle green. We'll think about that while we see how this looks. Yes, I think I will do the whole handle in the green. It just will be easier. I'm sorry, it's really hard to show you how I'm doing this, but it's just, I'm just painting. I'm just painting and now putting the glitter on. Any empty spaces we end up with after we're done with this step, we can fill in just by applying some Mod Podge to it, where we can fix spots like I just bobbled right there. The paint layer does not need to be perfect by a long shot because you're just all covering it all up, so it doesn't matter. If it's a little bit streaky, as long as there's enough there for adherence, that's all that matters. All right, so we've got this step done. It's not the trees that I was envisioning, but it's going to work with the overall design. And I'm going to pop this green back in here. And I can take this tape off now. And if you do get the odd little bobble on the very edge, that's okay because you're going to be putting strips of vinyl separating the fabric from your glitter layer anyway, so don't stress about those kinds of things. So now I'm going to use, because I have white in here, I'm just, instead of using the colored paint, I'm just going to paint the white paint over this, and I'm going to use an angle brush, just a small angle brush with white paint along my edge here, that hopefully I can do a good job of along the edge of the fabric with this angle brush. And I'm just going to get that just a little bit wet and take off the water. need a different angle brush because that's got some blue paint in it somehow. Blue is not my color scheme. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to make sure I don't have any glitter on there. Again, because I'm doing this in sections, because I don't want my paint to dry too much for it to go through and stick. I'm just going to have everything ready to go. And I'm just butting right up against my fabric. Aren't these fun? Okay, again with, I guess with chunkier things, the acrylic is not quite strong enough to bond heavier kinds of glitter well. I just need thicker layers. Whoa! It's gonna look cute though. Get that bottom really good. Epoxy method's still my favorite method for applying glitter. This is for specifically these kinds of situations that I use the paint. I love this. This is nice. So I'll just, after this is all dry, I'll brush off any thing that's loose and then apply some Mod Podge. I just got paint all over my finger. So I'm going to let this part dry before I do the top, because clearly I can't rest this on anything because everything's wet. So I will be back. Okay, I sprayed this really good, and you need to know that the dots, with using the paint to adhere them, a good at least 85% of them all fell off. So don't do that method for anything but fines and extra fine glitters. These ones were all fine, but the shapes just did not work. So I went over everything because there were a few little blank spots that happened with, that's what happens when you use glue kind of things, but there were a few blank spots. So I went through and covered with Mod Podge and did a second coat of all of my glitters, and then I sprayed it twice. Not twice. I sprayed it really well with a clear spray paint. I used Rust-Oleum, and I put 2 layers of epoxy on here. I use DIY Artisan epoxy. That's my favorite. My second favorite is the CC DIY medium viscosity, but Robin sells the DIY epoxy. So I have Pressing Images. She's the Canadian distributor for them. So and it is my favorite by far over any other kind of epoxy that I've tried. So anyway, I've got this now. I'm not going to be able to finish this before my video posts, but I've got it to the place where I can add my vinyl, and then I will add another couple of coats of epoxy. It's still pretty rough around here because I used the Mod Podge method, not the epoxy method, so I didn't get my glitter down flat. I should have just applied a little bit of epoxy to it and it would have been fine, but like to adhere it, and then I could have done my parchment trick on it. But I'll put at least 2 more coats of glitter on of epoxy on here to cover this glitter, and then I will sand it. But right now I want to put my vinyl on, and this vinyl, Robin just got it in and she hasn't yet put it on the website, but I'm assuming she will soon. It's called Shattered Vinyl, and doesn't this remind you of the old-fashioned mercury glass Christmas ornaments that you could get? So I thought that this would be the perfect thing for on here because it's a Christmas cup. So I've measured all the way around the circumference of my cup, and that, for this particular cup, it was 11.25 inches around. But your measurements, you can't go by my measurements, because your measurements will depend on what cup you're using, the size of your cup, and the how thick everything is by the time you actually put your vinyl on, and how many coats of epoxy you use, because every coat of epoxy adds to the girth of your cup. So even from one cup to another, you need to stop and measure your vinyl pieces and how long they're going to be. So I measured 11.25 inches around. I'm not sure that I'm going to do my vinyl up over top of where it meets the glitter. I haven't decided yet. I might just do it in a box, but I cut it long enough that I can if I want to. And then I cut for the sides here pieces that were 5.75 inches long. So I am going to just run my vinyl strips along the top and along the bottom, and if I need to, if I decide I want to cut it off, I can just use my my craft knife to do that. I have a Cricut craft knife that works really good for stuff like that. So I'm just going to start. So I've cut these strips. I like to do it 0.15 wide by however long I need it to be. So that just seems to my eye to be the best width for these kinds of things. You might like them wider and you might like them skinnier, or you might like to stack them, two different kinds of vinyl on top. So because I don't know if I'm going to stop it or not, I'm going to start it right at this edge here, and I'm just going to put it down on the bottom of my edge for my glitter so that I get maximum glitter. And I am just going to peel the backing off and keep things as straight as I can. Now, in a perfect world, I would have this really smooth before I did this part, but I want to make sure I show you this part before I end my video, so because it's a part of the finished look. And just peel that off. Make sure you're as straight as you can be. Crooked lines drive me crazy. Okay, so I match up well here. Match up so well, I don't think I'll be able to find that to fix it if I need to. So I think I will keep that, but I'm still undecided. So there's my top done. And it just sets it off nicely and finishes it. It's the finishing touches that make the difference. So I'm going to do the same on this bottom part. Maybe start it from this side, be easier. You just want to hide really the edge of where everything meets. And if you find you're going astray, you can lift it up and lay it back down. And sometimes it's just a little too awkward to keep the paper backing on while you're messing with it. So there's the bottom. It's all nice and neatly wrapped around. And it just finishes it off nicely. So now I'm going to do my side edges, and I'm going to get my cradle. Just because it'll be a little easier. This cradle's a lot more fancy than I need it to be, but I made it when my husband made it for me when I was first starting out. No, this is not going to help. So this is where we can hide to see where there's a little unevenness right in here. This is where we hide all of that under epoxy, and I'm gonna, or under our vinyl, sorry. And I'm just gonna butt this up against the vinyl that's already on the top. And I'm gonna work my way down, and I know it's longer than I need it to be, but I wasn't sure how I was going to finish it off. So now I'm going to take my craft knife And I'm just going to right here along the edge of my bottom part, just run my knife, and then I can pick this piece up. In theory. Apparently I need a new blade. And it's no gaps in there. So it's just subtle, but it's finishes off on the glitter side and hides any bubbles that you might have made. So one last piece. And again, I'm going to butt it right up to the edge. Of the vinyl, and I'm going, that's not quite there yet. And if you're more comfortable working with it without the backing, that is just fine. And just make sure it's straight. Press it down and trim it off. So there we have my interpretation of the Christmas in July mystery box. With a little added embellishment with the vinyl. So this is, I'll be posting the finished picture when I get it all done, but this is what it looks like. So hopefully there's something in this video that you found useful, and Merry Christmas, and we will see you in a couple weeks.